So the next session is going to be quite interesting because it has a complex title called The Journey from Data Sharing to Food Safety Using Data Trusts. In this session, James will go through technical solutions and some case studies on successful data sharing projects in industry and government. I would like to invite James Doyle, Director of Global Accounts at Cream Global.
Just make sure the next slide comes up. Well, firstly, I'd like to thank Dubai Municipality, the organisers of what has been a hugely successful conference, and for you for staying with us for the last session of the conference, and I appreciate you all being here today. So as the chair said, my talk is all about the journey, and this journey doesn't end. There is no end, and that's not a bad thing. But it's to take what is a very simple idea, which is sharing data, and what I will focus on today is specifically about public-private data and accessing that and bringing it together all around food safety as a concept. Because food safety, from our opinion, and I think it is shared within this room, within this conference, food safety should be and should always remain non-competitive. So why share it? And there's a lot of fear, and we've heard from, it's a wonderful session to hear all the technologies that enable this. Why share it? And so with the slant, and I could put up various slides here, various triggers and drivers, because the food supply chain is vulnerable. There's a lot of shifting sands. It's under pressure from various drivers, socioeconomic, and here's one example of weather and climate change that's having a real tangible effect. And so this is all July numbers 2023 this year. And I put it up both because of the temperature and also the location. The land temperature in Spain went to 61 degrees Celsius. Now maybe in Dubai that isn't out of the ordinary. For Spain it is. And what's the impact of that? So the olive oil harvest was decimated. No one could go out. Harvesters could not go out and work. So sometimes you need to see it, and you need to have tangible impact on your supply chain to affect change. And what I want to talk about today is a technology to have that interoperability, as Charmaine mentioned, so we can share data to overcome a lot of these vulnerabilities that the supply chain is being hit with. And as I said, this is one example. And I take a few points here from the Global Food Security Index, 4 key summaries that they had in 2022. Food security going down the way, affordability as an issue, food security and resilience. We need to build innovation to build up that resilience, ultimately acknowledging the fact that the food supply chain, food security is vulnerable and it's changing. And that's the new norm. I've talked to loads of people across the food supply chain over the last couple of years who are under intense pressure. And some of them are hoping, if I'll get over this hump and then it'll be fine. It'll all go back to the way it was. That isn't. This is the new norm. And so we need to build up resilience around this. And at the bottom here, I took a couple of screenshots of a ranking that they did. And that comes with a caveat. I can understand why they need to do it. I don't agree with it so much. On another day, I'll be quite happy, and I'll be saying I'm from Ireland, so I'll be quite happy to say Ireland are second. Great, job well done, pat ourselves on the back and we move on. But the food supply chain is global. So the weakest performers, that's our problem. So the best performer, Finland, well done. The weakest performance is still your problem. And so this, again, is why we need to share data to bring the collective wisdom and elevate the whole supply chain. And as I said, make it non-competitive. A perfect example where the actual food security score hasn't changed since 2019. So, what is a data trust? What is a mechanism to de-risk the sharing of what is deemed confidential, private data, and bring it together for the collective good? And we've heard from regulators and government authorities quite enviously this week, and I've heard it many times before, saying, I know industry have really good data. I'd love to see a little bit of it. And sometimes never the twain shall meet. And I will give you case studies where I can show you that it does work. People see tangible benefits. They get actionable intelligence every day. So it does work. These are green shoots. Maybe they're greater than green shoots. I don't know what the next term is. But there is definitely tangible benefits coming through. So is it an agreement to share data or a platform? Ultimately, it's both. So it combines the underlying software technology with the framework. And ultimately, that framework is a series of terms and conditions around data governance and so forth. And the platform is a technological solution to implement that governance and framework. And who shares it? Well, ultimately, as I said, what I'm going to talk about today is really both, because if I harp on about that sentence that food security is non-competitive, well, then we need to, because continuing the way we currently are isn't an option anymore. So things have to change. And who can see it? Well, you can control the access as well, and who can see the data. So ultimately, and I'll talk a little bit more about the underlying technology, but I guess there's flexibility for it to breathe, and that's how it's built. It's built in a modular fashion to facilitate and address concerns of partners, and that's ultimately how we've developed it. We've listened to the stakeholders. So there you can have an industry-only scenario, where you can have within industry, these may be divisions or a franchise, and please don't ever believe that the larger the industry, the better they share data or host data. I'm never surprised with how data that's sent to us is still in a handwritten note. It's 2023. That still exists. That's not a problem. We can deal with that. It poses a challenge. But please don't ever believe that the larger the industry, the better data they have, or I guess they're better data ready to share. We can look at from regulators as well, and I'll talk briefly about a case study at the end with the FDA, both within an agency, a government agency, but ultimately the key is to bring multiple federal agencies together to share data. And the ideal scenario is that they ultimately come together in a non-competitive way for the greater good. So I'll pause here for a second just to actually introduce the company. Creme Global is headquartered in Dublin, Ireland. It's a scientific modelling and data science company at the core, but under one roof we have data science, maths and stats teams, data engineering, which is critical. I'll talk briefly about some of the aspects of that. Front-end, back-end software, food and nutrition teams, all those core expertise under one roof to address the concerns of our customers, to build something that works, it's robust, it's scalable, and it addresses a need. So a little bit about the platform architecture. So if we start at your bottom left-hand corner, on the two screens, we can have a series of organizations or users that can submit data. And that's a quick and easy, it can be a drag and drop style approach in various formats. I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. And they drag and drop and it goes into a safe, secure repository. We can anonymize it at that source, at the source of submission, removing metadata if people want. So I guess what we have is a series of dials, technological dials are built within the software to adapt it to the needs. But ultimately we would build a data repository We can do various other anonymization. We can shuffle the deck again and aggregate that data. And ultimately, you're getting towards a series of users, maybe in the same domain, maybe grouped around the same commodity, who now will be able to benchmark their activities or their food safety activities against others, against the collective knowledge. We can also supplement that with various other data sets, and we've seen some wonderful talks already about that, and Fadi mentioned the huge amount of alert data, RASIF, and so forth. And so we can pull all that in and pool that. And then ultimately, you end up with the sort of communication hub, which is your advanced visualization tool, and we've seen some of those before. And so they can be adapted and tailored to address specific needs for specific stakeholders. Ultimately as well, it's built around that legal privilege. And so it's inherently built into the system as well. And so then we can scale this beyond. So we can have, and this is an example with the FDA, so we can have various users within one organization, and we can just add in more users. There's various data engineering techniques like sectional access, where we can protect your data to make sure it's both not contaminated nor seen by others until it is aggregated and anonymized. But now you're starting to build a major data set, and if you left it there, you may end up with noise. Ultimately, a wealth of data, there are not many people that could gain all the key insights needed if you've got a million-row Excel, and I asked you, go and pick me the best insights, and I'm going to make a business decision on the feedback that you give me. That's a high-risk strategy. And a spoiler, you won't be able to do it. What we will do is we can build in technology that will do that for you. We'll pick the obvious ones, we'll show you the non-obvious ones, and you can end up with a risk score, risk ranking, a vulnerability score, especially in this constantly changing dynamic supply chain. And then we can pull in the power of, this is where it gets very interesting, especially for a lot of our team, because they can pull in the power of machine learning then to actually move from insight to foresight. And maybe for the first time, move away from putting out fires to staying ahead and predict where they occur. So a little bit about user provisioning. They're sort of self-explanatory, but ultimately we've got control of that stage from submitter, approver, that can be within your organization. So I guess there's a bit of a safeguard built in inherently, administrator and data viewer. And it may be that you don't want your submitter to also view a dashboard. We ultimately have control to switch on as needed. Something a little bit about the system architecture, the data engineering. I won't go heavily into this, but again, it's to remove the barriers to join and participate. So we can ingest data pretty much in any form. Some of them come with their pros and cons, but in any form. And especially when you look at the likes of APIs, everything else on this screen, everything is automated. So there's nothing you need to do. All you do is maybe get an email alert, maybe the vulnerability score has changed, or it prompts you to go to the dashboard to review. So I'm going to go to 3 case studies in the last few minutes. And so the first one is the Food Industry Intelligence Network. And this is, again, a data collection platform, data sharing platform, a data trust. There's legal privilege involved in this. It's all around food authenticity. And so there's a series of members. That's the landing page where they log in. And I know they have a stand over there. Camden BRI are collaborative members and work very closely with us and the Fin team to deliver this time and time again. It's been working. It's been active since 2018. It rose 10 years, actually the anniversary is this year, out of the horse meat scandal. And one of the big recommendations that came out of the Chris Elliott report, which was commissioned by the British government, was that industry needs to share data. And so this is claims. and we have a series of members growing all the time, which is wonderful, and nobody now talks to me about what happens, or I'm fearful about my data. The only conversation I get is, how do I upload? How and when? And so we have various legal privileges built into that. I won't go into all the details, but this is all around food authenticity. And so they now have the collective sharing, the collective knowledge. You might do 1 or 2 lab tests a month. There is no way you can afford or have the time to raise that to the 5,000 that the collective submit in a given food commodity space. And then you can start to see your trends and insights. Only then, without that, there's no way. And so this is a very simplified version of incoming data through the legal privilege, aggregated insights. And of course, now the next step is to wrap that with some machine learning technology and various algorithms to move from insight to foresight. And these are some of the key benefits. I think I've already mentioned them, but prediction and prevention. Western growers. So this may be, as mentioned once or twice already, the conference is nearly 200 years old as an association, 1826. But they've also mentioned the salad bowl of the world. So this is the Salinas Valley, 1.4 million acres of arable land feeding America. I thought we did good farming in Ireland. It's on a whole different scale. And my belief, and I could be corrected and stand corrected on this, I believe this is the first time formally those shared data together. Competitors, traditionally competitors, and that's okay. It's okay to be competitive, but they're sharing food safety data non-competitively and gaining benefit and insights. They gain actionable insights. They can make data-informed decisions. Similar sort of platform. We try to keep it nice and simple. This is an example of one of the portals. As I said, you get nice alerts, you drag and drop, and then through data engineering and ETL processes and so forth, which I won't go into, it automatically updates your dashboard. And they have various dashboards like this where they can get the granularity that they need, and very quickly we can adapt dashboards. Once you have the data warehouse and your data house in order, actually how you communicate that out is just down to talking and adapting to different stakeholders. And some of the benefits as well, and one of the key ones there, and it links with the next example I'm going to give, is reduced costs. And that's okay to say that. It's okay that there is a competitive advantage to doing this, because things cannot remain. There needs to be change, but what we're offering here is a non-disruptive change. It complements existing processes, and people can buy into it. And so the last example I'll give is a project that's been ongoing for a while now with the FDA, a very productive project, one that's quite close to my heart, in around seafood. So 94% of all seafood is imported into the US. And there's some phenomenal checks and measures around that. But again, as a regulator, as an agency, it's capacity management. What do I check, where and when? And so ultimately what we're looking to do is offer them insights, collective insights, beyond what they currently have and beyond what their current budget can afford or do. And so here's probably a 3 sort of screen graphic of a login page, a place to upload data, and then dashboards alongside that. And the same again, once we have that in place, we can actually start to mine that and put context on it through machine learning techniques and the likes of analytical AI as well, which brings in natural language processing and the likes. But this is, and the likes of Finn and Western growers, like Finn has been talked, would mention this himself, but he's quite independent actually, though he recommended it. It's seen as the gold standard in data sharing globally. Time and time again, he's asked, how can I roll this out? And probably what I would say is contact me, is probably the easiest one, because it can be done. And each of these people are gaining actionable intelligence and making decisions through data. because things have to change. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle, for that insightful explanation on data usage.